Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the O'Collies post-game coverage of OSU's 34-41 loss. Yes, I said it for the first time this season, loss against the Texas Longhorns, the number 6 ranked Cowboys, in an overtime loss. A very thrilling matchup here, Sudeep. You know, when you talk about sort of the way this game went down, and it was really interesting to see, you know, sort of all these different punches landed, right? Going back to the first quarter, I remember that last minute. I thought that was the craziest last minute ever. You know, just some of the mistakes, some of the back and forth type of deals. But then we got to the second half as a whole, and that where things really started to become really a crap show, if you will, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you're right. To begin the first half, or to end the first half, you kind of had that feeling of, okay, OSU's up a little bit, and they could maybe extend it, right? But instead, Spencer Sanders, right, turnover, and then Texas gets 3 points. Still, you're okay, right? Because if you were OSU, honestly, you were not dominating the game, but you were still playing really well, right? Thoroughly outplaying Texas, I'll say that.
Sure.
But then, Talon Wallace, touchdown, great touchdown, by the way, right? Displays once again. First of all, great game by Talon Wallace, right?
Amazing game.
We'll get to that later for sure. But yeah, I mean, after that, it just became really just weird, right?
Yeah.
Where it was just, after that, it was the kickoff return touchdown, right? Turnover. So many turnovers. 4 turnovers, it felt like 5.
Yeah, no, it totally did. And when you look at the base of this turnover and all the turnovers that happened, a lot of it went back to Spencer Sanders. And let's talk a little bit in depth about what went wrong from your perspective with Spencer Sanders today, because obviously the inconsistencies were just really prevalent throughout.
Well, first off, we have to actually start with what goes right, right? Because they really do go hand in hand, right? When you have an aggressive quarterback who's so talented, such a great runner, who's ready to take chances, who's so competitive, right? This guy's a gamer, right? He's a gamer. That is the definition of a gamer. A competitive guy who wants to make plays, right? OSU fans will remember Marcus Smart was exactly the same way, right? And that's the problem, right? Not the problem, but also it's a problem, sort of, right? It's a fine line you walk, right? When you have a quarterback like that, right? You have to walk that line between, you don't want to coach all of that aggression out of him, right? You don't want to take away, because those plays, right? The 30-something yard run where he just breaks out and making, you know, breaks a few ankles, gets almost to the end zone. You need that, right? Like in a game like this where the Texas D-line was that good, you needed that. But then you look at the 3rd and 8, right? You want to just throw it away, but he wants that touchdown so badly, right? He sees a guy, Talon Wallace, or whoever, open left side of the end zone, almost throws a pick, right? This is a problem. But also, it's really hard, and it's much easier said than done to say, like, oh yeah, this guy's great, but just cut away the turnovers and he's elite, right? Much easier said than done. I go back to the example of Pat Mahomes, right? In the NFL, right? Not Texas Tech Pat Mahomes. His second year, he had, 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards, you know, crazy. And immediately everyone's crowning him as the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
I couldn't, right? Because he wasn't winning games. Wasn't winning playoff games. And that wasn't just a fluke, right? It wasn't because of their defense. It was because his decisions. For example, say it was right here, right?
Yeah.
The 35-yard line. 2 yards to get the 3rd down. He scrambles out. He's standing right here. Instead of running for 2 yards and getting that first down with nobody in front of him, he'll launch it 30 yards down. Those are not winning plays. They'll win fantasy football leagues.
There you go.
They'll win highlight reels, but they do not win games, right? Spencer Sanders has a lot of that in him, right? And it's like, it's really that fine line. It's fine-tuning him while keeping that exciting playmaking, that raw playmaking ability. It is very difficult, right? Now we talk about those picks, the fumbles, right? I mean, first of all, L.D. Brown, ball security. No excuse ever for running backs, right? The handoff between him and Chuba, no excuse. That just can't happen. It's not like an interception, you're making a bad read, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't an RPO. It wasn't a read option where one guy or the other has to take it, right? It was just a simple play action where the ball was lost. That cannot happen, right? Interception, that cannot happen. The Texas defender was just reading the whole time. I'm gonna have to watch it again to really look at what it was, but these type of mistakes cannot happen, right? It's tough. It really is. And that's the balance you're trying to strike. But those are, I think those are backbreaking, because turnovers hurt every single, right? Turnovers hurt all the time, right? They do. But they really hurt against OSU, because I think, wrote this down, it was the 3 of the 4 turnovers, they started at the OSU 8, the OSU 20, like the OSU 15, right? Like, think about how short of a field. This is the best offense in the Big 12 they were going up against. You can't give them that short of a field. The defense is doing a tremendous job. I don't know exact numbers, but if you look at every time Texas had to go 70, 80, 90 yards, it was either 3 and out, or they would go about 20 yards and punt it, right? That was elite defense. It's all you can do against that sort of offense, right? I really think that, I'll just say this, I really think OSU would have won by double-digit points if you knock out those turnovers. They didn't force any turnovers. And also the other side, right? Spencer Sanders for OSU has overall had 6 drives of at least 60 yards, 60. 6-0. That's a lot of yards, right? And 4 of those were touchdowns, right? Like, they were capitalizing when they had their opportunities. But then you just, instead of turnover, you punt the ball away. There's no points because of the way the defense is. I used to say last year when Mike Gundy would be conservative with Spencer Sanders, right? Running a designed run with Spencer on 3rd and 7. Chuba 3rd and 9 run, right? I was just like, okay, you can't do that. Even though Spencer had turnover problems, you still needed him to make those sort of plays because your defense wouldn't support you, right? Early on in the season. This was last year, right? But now you look at it, and the way the defense is playing, right? It's something you can't have. It's just that simple, right? I mean, like I said, it's simple to say, right? It's very easy to say, okay, yeah, just cut out the turnover problems. But Spencer Sanders is obviously very mad at himself, right? We saw him. He's very upset.
Super mad.
No doubt. And those are just difficult things to make up. You cut out, but like there's times where okay, let's not do this. 3rd and 16, you're launching the ball down the field. I was convinced that Mike Gundy would not do that.
I know.
I wish like I said last year, I would have loved for that to happen because your defense likely wouldn't make plays, right? Again, until the end of the season. But you look at this team, right? They're up 7. They're in not a defensive battle, but their defense is battling, right? They're not letting any ground. You run the ball out, half is over. You don't give anything up, right? Maybe somehow he breaks and you get 20 yards. But you play that, then you get the ball back after half. That was the smart play. That was the right play for almost any coach, especially Mike Gundy, who's not only conservative at times, in the right way, but also with freshmen. And for him to do that, just honestly mind-boggling to me. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a grievous error or something like that, but it was just surprising to me.
Do you think the fact that Mike Gundy took some of these risks and some of these plays and the wrist didn't pan out, do you think that in the future he might not do that? Because he sort of the anxieties were confirmed to him. He was like, oh, dang, I always go conservative. This game I'm going to not go conservative. Then it didn't work.
I'll say this. I mean, I think normally that's what they normally do, but I think he can because he has a defense, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about this in our podcast, right? Over the weekend. The great thing about this defense and Jim Knowles and all the talent they have is that Mike Gundy as a head coach is allowing them to flourish, right?
Sure.
He's not just saying, okay, yeah, offense plays, defense plays, right? It's hand in hand. Conservative decisions. If you're here in your own 20-yard line, you're instead of 3rd and 7, let's pass it, maybe an interception like against Iowa State last week. You just run the ball out and you kick the punt away to a great punter right now, right? Tom Hutton is playing excellent. You punt the ball away, play field position, get the ball back. That's been working, right? And Mike Gundy's been doing that. He's working the two hand in hand. He's really excelling as a head coach, right? Just purely a head coach, not just an offensive guy, right? And that's awesome to see. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I believe that is very, very true.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think sort of a little bit what you saw today, in addition to that, was sort of just some of the unknowns. If you want to talk about positives for OSU, you look at some of these unsung heroes, if you will, right? Like, and obviously it didn't pan out for them, but if you look at a guy like Landon Wolf, he had some good catches there, some good yardage there. Dylan Stoner, that one play, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Very interesting there. And even a guy like LD Brown had a really great game, and was really hitting those holes and running with great speed, great quickness, and was having a really good game. But overall, I mean, you got to look at Tylan Wallace and the performance he had today.
No doubt. And to go back to that in a second, but I'll add to the list Braden Johnson.
Yes,
right. He had 3 catches, 50 yards, nothing crazy, but he drew those 2 long PIs.
Long,
right? Right, exactly. I'm saying this isn't the NFL, so it didn't go that far. But that's honestly, I'm not gonna say NFL teams or football teams just pass the ball deep to draw PIs, but sometimes it happens, right? When you have talented guys on the outside, speedy, deep threats. You do that, and half the time, sometimes you get a PI, right? Sometimes you get a little tug, and that's part of it, right? You get yards, free yards, no risk, right? No risk. But, I mean, obviously there's a risk, but anyway, yeah. I mean, Tylan Wallace, oh my God. And a lot of that really went down to, A, this guy is really talented, right?
There you go.
And B, the way Texas was playing defense, right? Not only were they stacking the box, they were stuffing the run, right?
Yeah.
Let's make this clear. This was not Chuba Hubbard and LD Brown struggling. I mean, it was. But the Texas D-line was ferocious, right?
Sure.
They were getting in the backfield.
Joseph Asai, oh
right.
my
Joseph
goodness.
Asai, Taquan Graham, Keandre Coburn, the huge nose tackle. Those guys were putting a lot of pressure. Joseph Asai, oh my God.
Yeah. What else can you say about
I just, his stat line is glued to my head.
Yeah.
13 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Oh my God. The game-winning sack.
Yeah.
Like,
and even that, I feel like even that does not even display the full picture.
right. Yeah, he's just putting pressure constantly, right? But yeah, I mean, Talon Wallace was excellent. And the great thing about him is, I'll address this to really make it seem. You look at last year and you always used to wonder, why is Talon Wallace the only person that OSU's thrown to, right? What happened to Dylan Stoner and Braden Johnson and Jelani Woods and blah, blah, blah. It's because Talon Wallace is even when he's covered, he's not covered.
Yeah.
Right? He's that kind of receiver because, he's a great route runner, right? You saw him use all over the field, always, right? Crossing routes, curls. I think the Talon Wallace curl route is just deadly because of the fact that he's such a great deep threat, right? And then also just he's running on the field, defender stuck with him, just throw it up to him. He goes up and gets it, right? I mean, I almost never see picks on well-thrown 50-50 balls, right? At worst, they're just incomplete, right? But that's just what I mean. Like, it's the coverage, right? You saw what Texas is playing, 4-2-5, press quarters. What quarters, what I mean? 4 guys covering 4 quarters, right? You have the cornerbacks back, the safeties, right? And the linebackers in the middle, right? That's what you're playing. That's the defense you're playing. And what that does is it doesn't really let you double Talon Wallace, right? Which is why most of the passes you saw were just deep down the field, right? You saw some crossing routes where he found some holes, right? A little bit. But mostly that's what it was, right? That's smart. You see him single coverage. That's your one read. And football's like this. Like, this isn't Madden. You can't see all 5 receivers at the same time, right? Sure, other guys might be open, but you're going 1, 2, 3, 4 read, right? You have your reads, right? And Talon Wallace is one of your reads. And it's an early one, right? If Casey Dunn's up there and he sees, Talon Wallace one-on-one with anyone, we're throwing it, right? And man, it's just such a weapon to have, right? But yeah, it's also one of the receivers where you need an apt quarterback to be able to throw it, right? He's not just a guy obviously he's a great route runner, but his offense isn't just built on, routes and this and that. A lot of times it's, hey, we have this receiver, go, right? Screen pass, get the ball in the hands of your playmaker.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why Talon Wallace having a great game, right? And honestly, overall, the vertical attack, right? The rush, we always talk about the run game with OSU, Chuba Hubbard, right? That's a huge staple, but when Texas D-line is playing the way it was, when they're stacking the box at times, right? Putting more and more pressure and not even selling out to stop Chuba, but they were really putting a lot of pressure on Chuba Hubbard, then you have to throw the ball, and that's what Spencer Sanders did, right? I mean, let's not forget, cut out the turnovers, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
Excellent, right? Rolled out the pocket a lot of times, and not just to run, but to throw passes, right? It was great. I mean, this entire vertical passing game, like I said, 6 drives of 60 yards at least. They're sustaining drives up and down, right? Like Texas, you would kick the ball away, force them to go 80 yards. All but one drive, they couldn't, right? The one Brandon Eagles touchdown, right? Besides that, they didn't capitalize on any of those drives, right? But OSU was able to, right? Every time, even if they were 80 yards down, they were still rolling, right? And that was key. That's why I said they could have won by double-digit points.
And I think you're totally right when you say that, because it's just the capitalization of some of these opportunities, and it didn't happen on their end. But OSU, just all these mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. But what I think an interesting element of this, right, and to sort of finish this out, is talking about the defense and sort of how Mike Gundy this year, and you can see it there late in the fourth quarter where they're punting it away because they trust the defense. Usually, if there's 2 minutes to go against Texas and you're trying to score because you're down, you're OSU, you're going for it, right? You're totally going for it. You're not waiting on your defense. You kidding me? That's a guaranteed way to go down 10 and not 3 at that like it was at that point. So, what did you see from this defense today, and how were they able to go against this, as you said, probably the best offense in the Big 12?
When you saw the defense straight up, you know how week after week after week we talk about how much pressure the OSU D-line gets? It wasn't that today, right? It was really Texas, right? Texas D-line was getting all that. But OSU was really playing well. What you saw mostly was a quarterback who was ready to take chances, right? But cornerbacks sticking like glue. Rodarius Williams Rodarius had another fantastic game. I don't know if he even gave him a yard, right? I got to look back and see, but it just looked like he gave up very few, if anything, right? And then Jared Bernard-Converse having another excellent day, right? The secondary as a whole was great. Thomas Harper did a very solid job, I think, filling in for, obviously, Colby Harville-Peel. Losing him, losing Trey Sterling are never easy, right? It's 2 of the best safeties in the nation. But at the same time, you were deep, right? And that just shows it. You have depth there. Thomas Harper played excellent, I think, right? He made a bunch of really good plays. Tanner McAllister showed again why he's so valuable to the defense, filling in, right? The one starter who didn't return, but this guy is very solid. He's really proving it, especially as a tackler, right? You saw it late down there, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think the defense played really well. You saw a lot of good pass rushing, right? At times, 5 sacks. I think
Brock Martin.
Right, Brock Martin had a very good game, out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, like I said, this is a second string guy, right? He makes plays. This is a defense that's too deep, right? You got Calvin Bungers down there, right? Cameron Murray, all over. One of the sacks by Amen too. It wasn't even. I don't think it was a design blitz on him, but he's just so smart, and that's how he picked up so many sacks. Where he sees, the quarterback's about to rush out. He's just playing spire. He's just playing coverage, and he's so smart. He's just able to go in there, blitz, take him down, right? You saw it, Tyler Lacey, I believe, the sack. And I think his defense played so well, but the highlight is really on the outside.
Sure.
Those cornerbacks, their ability to stick just made the way OSU's defense operates, especially on third down. I don't remember the number, but maybe 2 for 10 or 2 for 15 or something. They were just clamping down on third down, right? And that's something they've been doing all year, right? One of the best third down defenses in the nation, right? And it's no fluke. Jim Knowles on third down, he can dial up the blitzes. He can get creative with stunts, right? He can sometimes just play straight up, and he's got the corners to do it. It's such a luxury, right? That you can blitz, right? Or you can just play off. You can play cover 0. You can play 8 in coverage, 9 in coverage. You can do whatever you want, right? This guy is so smart. His schemes are awesome. He's doing it. I think the defense was so big, right? And it just circles back to that, right? It's the turnovers. I want to talk about the refs and the bad calls. Sure, there were some here and there, right? Like, we're not gonna lie, like there were some, toward the end. But again,
I'd say on both sides too.
Sure, exactly, yeah. And there were definitely some, but in the end, it was really the turnovers that killed it, right? This should have been an OSU double-digit win, in my opinion. I really believe that. But when you have those sort of crucial turnovers, this is what happens. It's like the game against Iowa State, right?
Yeah.
When Spencer Sanders throws a pick in his own territory, Iowa State gets the ball 26 yards away. It's very difficult to defend, right? The OSU defense takes a lot of pride. They don't want to let you do anything, right? What did Cherry Starling say today? Jim Knowles says, if there's an inch to defend, we'll defend. Probably mess up that quote, but it's something along that lines, right? And that's just the mentality they have. They're 1 on 10 if they let 1 of 20 third down conversions, they're concerned about that one, right? That's the mentality they have, which is awesome, right? And that's what's going to fuel this team really far. But I think overall, like I said, this is a great defensive performance. But it's like. This is why I say in football, often the defense aren't two different parts. They go together, right? And when your offense kind of not struggles, but turns the ball over and gives them the ball 3 times in their own 20-yard line, it's really difficult. And I think 1 and 2 of those, they let up a field goal, but overall, it's very difficult. The other one was 60 yards away, which is not too far still, right? 59 yards away. And it just makes it so difficult because not only are you giving shorter field position, those are momentum swings, right? Those are swings in the wrong direction. And it energizes the other team, right? That's what turnovers do. They don't just give you field position, they energize you, right? Even if you get a pick and you got worse field position than if they had punted it, you still just get energized. And that's why I think it was tough, those turnovers, right? I mean, that's what I want to circle back to. Those turnovers were difficult, and that's really the reason all came down, right? That's all you heard was mentioned in the postgame conference.
An issue of turnovers, an issue of discipline, and we will see how OSU recovers from this. We will see it next week against Kansas State, who also lost today to our friends over there at West Virginia and Jared Dagey. But that's all we have for you for the Ocala sports coverage. Continue listening to our coverage. We will have you covered next week against Kansas State as well. Have a great night.